Hey Insulators! Tonight we are with my nephew. His name is Brendan Pendley, and he lives out here in Denver, Colorado area. Brendan's been in the building trades, and now he's a code expert, and thought it would be good to have a discussion with him. So Brendan, tell us about your background in insulation and then building trades and how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, so growing up, my dad owned a framing company with my uncle, Brian, your brother. Um, my grandfather, Papa, was what we called him. He owned an insulation company. So at a pretty early young age, I was probably 12 years old when I started working along with you guys and throwing some bats up in the walls, opening bags, trying to haul them around the house the best I could. They were a little heavy for me at that age, but I did what I could. Throwing bats up to the guys on the scaffolding, that was probably the hardest part when I was young. But yeah, it was good. Did that for multiple summers, and actually, that's how I obtained my first car, was working with Papa. So yeah, that was a 1976 Ford Thunderbird, and it was Grandpa Pendley's vehicle. Yep. Yeah. So yep.
Okay, I want to stop you right there though.
Yeah.
My dad bought a vacuum. And one of the first jobs he had was doing what?
So that was an awful job. We had a very old home. It was built in the late 1800s, I believe, maybe early 1900s. It was insulated throughout the attic with newspaper scraps. It was very poorly framed. You could see right through the roof decking, and there was mounds and mounds of bat feces and dead bats everywhere. That was a terrible job. That was a micro dirty job for sure. My first experience using a vacuum was a bad job.
A good way to break her.
Yeah, I think it was my last.
Okay, so a lot of good stuff with the insulation and the framing with my brother and your dad. And where did you go when you got out here to Denver?
So work was kind of slim in Michigan there for a little bit, and I got a call that there was an inspector training program. So I moved back out to Colorado and hopped into that program, and the rest is history. So worked as an inspector, worked as a plans examiner, and then I started my own business just a few years ago.
Yep. And he has a code consultation services out here in Denver, Colorado. Whenever I have a question about codes or any of my customers call me and say, hey, we're having this issue, we're having that issue, should we do this, should we do that? If I'm stumped, I go directly to him and go directly to my brother, and they've been very helpful. So I thought I'd have him talk a little bit today about codes. Where has the industry been maybe 10, 20 years ago? Where is it now? What's really changed? And how can you keep on top of that? So he's going to show us a couple of publications here that you should have. There's also free ways to get to these things as well. So Brendan, let us know a little bit about this.
When I started about 10, 11 years ago, most of the jurisdictions I worked in were under the 2009 Energy Code. That's this book right here. As you can see, now we're looking at the 21 Energy Code. A lot has changed.
Yeah.
A lot has changed. Specifically with insulation, we're looking at in our climate zone 5. In the 2009, a window U factor was 0.35. Now it's a 0.30. An above grade wall was R20, and now it's R20 plus 5 or an R30. Large design implications for sure. Attic insulation, R38. Now it's R60. There are ways to reduce that, but prescriptively, for the most part, it's R60. So a lot has changed. 2009, that's when we really started to see a lot of 2x6 walls, exterior walls. 2021, if you don't want to do spray foam and you don't want to do insulated exterior sheathing, 2x6 wall isn't even going to work anymore. So
that's crazy. Now that's zone 5. That's quite a stop. Yes. Do you see it increasing again? Are they coming out with new code changes?
Yes. So the 2024 Energy Code was just released probably about 2 months ago on ICC's website. I have not dug in very much. None of our jurisdictions have adopted it yet because it was just released. So I haven't really dug in very much to see what those design implications would be. I imagine it's only going to get more restrictive as time goes on.
Sure. So you can get this book, even the 2024 version, on Amazon. I just saw it. When you're getting that book, show us what they need to make sure that they have on this.
Yes, so a lot of the code books that you'll find on Amazon or on the internet in general, if they're not coming from ICC, a lot of the times they're knockoffs from China. And when you receive them, they might work for a little bit, but they'll start falling apart pretty quickly. The binding is not well done. We had issues with printing errors or where pages would be completely blank. If you do buy one on Amazon, be very wary. I would actually recommend not doing so. I would recommend purchasing directly from ICC. And you'll see any code that comes from ICC is going to have this little holographic sticker on it. It says Code Council Authorized. In addition, while we're talking about how to obtain the codes, there's also free access online on ICC's website. I'll share a link with you, and then perhaps you can get it.
And we'll put that in the description below the video.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
So you can get these codes for free. And that's important because you really need to know the codes.
Yep.
Especially when you go into an inspection, they're going to either give you a green sticker or a red sticker, and red sticker will have a list of the codes that you violated, and you need to know what that's talking about.
Yes. Yep.
And it's good for you to know the codes too, because sometimes I've been on a job site, an inspector just doesn't like the work and they won't cite the code that's been violated, and that's wrong on the inspector's part.
That's right.
Having a knowledge of the codes will really help you, and having them handy in your vehicle, you can justify and defend yourself.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, if an inspector does write you up on something, perhaps it's something you haven't heard before, he doesn't give you a code section with it, ask him for the code section. Be respectful, but yeah, ask him for the code section. In this day and age, and with how things have changed so much over the years, building is already enough of a challenge with all of the rules that there are to follow, without having an inspector come along and say, well, this is the way I think it should be done, or this is my opinion on it, so you're going to do it the way that I want you to do it. So that's not okay either. So yeah, definitely, if you have any questions, ask the inspector for the code section. The inspector should be writing the code section for you to begin with.
So some of the changes over the past 20 years, when I was actually in it day in and day out with the Papa's company, we never really encapsulated crawl spaces back then. I think it was just starting when I got out of it. Mostly it was all underneath. Explain maybe some of those changes and what has happened since then.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to tackle a crawl space. One, you can do a ventilated crawl space where it's outside the thermal envelope. So your thermal boundary is going to go down the wall, across the floor, up and across the roof. Or you can condition the crawl space as an alternative where you bring your thermal boundary down the wall, down into the crawl space, across the crawl space floor, and back up over the roof and back to the opposing wall. With a ventilated crawl space, you'll see crawl space vents. So you'll see vents through the rim or through the foundation in the corners. There's requirements for how many vents are needed. Insulators aren't going to have to worry about that. I know that in some areas, crawl space insulation was not required, regardless of the method that you were using for quite a while. Here in the 2009, crawl spaces were required to have, I believe there's an R10 continuous insulation in the crawl space or in a basement. I know when we were doing work in Michigan, Michigan has its own codes. It has the MRC, so Michigan Residential Code, etc. So they are based off of our model codes, off the ICC codes, but they've been altered to meet what the state of Michigan wanted to see. So there was some differences there for sure when we were doing installation in Michigan. It was definitely different than what a lot of the rest of the country was doing. So there is that. But yeah, now there is the requirement for, if you're conditioning the crawl space, to insulate the walls, to do a vapor retarder across the soil. You should not have any vents. Should not have any vents to the exterior. You don't want holes in your thermal envelope. That's a big no-no.
You need to condition that airspace under there too then at that point, right?
Yes, yep. Yeah, you condition that airspace. You have to have a return air path back to the main return air system, or you can do a transfer grill between crawl space itself and the common space above.
So that's where it's important to work alongside the HVAC company and make sure that they know your approach to how you're going to insulate that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and if you do have a furnace, a lot of people like to put their furnace and or water heater down in their crawl space. So if you're going to do that, you should be conditioning the crawl space. It's the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you'll be insulating all the ductwork that's down there. You'll be insulating all of the piping that's down there. It's a headache.
Yeah.
So another thing that we were talking about and wanted to make mention of, for insulators in particular, Chapter 3 is going to contain a lot of general requirements. And so what we're looking at here is the back half of our, and it's not even half, it's a little bit less than half. This all right here is the residential portion. All this on this side of the book, on the front of the book, that's all commercial. Insulators, chapter 3 is going to come in handy with a lot of general requirements. And then R402 is where we're going to find our building thermal envelope requirements. That's going to tell you where insulation is required, how it's to be installed, and at what values are to be installed at. In addition to that, R403, which is under systems, such as mechanical systems, you'll find requirements for insulating around ductwork and such, where it's located outside of conditioned space. Say you have ductwork that's running into an attic, ductwork that's running into an unconditioned ventilated crawl space like we've already talked about, or say you have ducts that are running inside of an exterior wall.
Well, thank you for sitting down with us.
Yeah, of course.
And again, we'll have links to getting these hard copies, also the digital links too.